Farm4Profit podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm4Profit podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm4Profit podcast.
Hey listeners, welcome back to the Farm4Profit podcast. This is Tanner.
And this is David, and we're sans Corey.
We
don't have Corey today.
No Corey. How exciting is this?
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
It's been a long time.
I'm looking forward to this. It's one of the shows, though, that he's going to need to listen to.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's certainly going to want to be a part of this one. But excited to share with you listeners another great interview that we have. Thank you so much for sending us suggestions. All these topics, all these guest ideas, they're from you, and we appreciate that. Farm4ProfitLLC@gmail.com. You can call or text us 515-207-9640. Of course, we check our DMs on social media. Probably don't get to those as fast as we do some of those other communication methods.
Yep.
But we appreciate the comments, too, on social media, as well as sharing those posts. So continue to keep that up.
Don't forget to check out our other podcast, Beyond the Jacket. And what's the other one?
Rush Hour Ag. So
there you go.
If you want to dive deep into policy or reminisce about your FFA days, two great places to be and get some entertainment that way as well. Always love that feedback. And part of that feedback, Dave, is we know our audience right now, profitability on the farm matters more than anything else. We are trying to play in sustainable agriculture. And sustainable for this year means we want to still farm next year.
Yes.
And one of the things that we've learned throughout the episodes we've done on Farm for Profit, all these conversations, is back to one of those shows that we talked about, peer groups, and being able to build a network of people that you can work within, trust, believe, and follow guidance from, and how important that is.
We were just talking about this. Go back to July of 2019. We had the exact same conversation. We talked about building a team and making a strong team around you that it can't be done just by yourself.
I think it is one of those common threads that every time somebody says, oh, yeah, you should make sure that this is a part of your advisory team. You should add this to your advisory team. It'd probably be a pretty good idea for us to resurface some of that, and that's what we're going to do today. We've got a repeat guest on. It's been a while. But we've got Shay Foulk here with AgView Solutions. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks very much, guys. Good to be here.
We came over to you, right?
Yeah, you did. I mean, 2 hours south of me. You're basically along the way, and glad this worked out. Beautiful day.
Well, very good. Remind our listeners, what's your tie to agriculture? How'd you start, or where are you at now?
Yep. So I currently work with AgView Solutions, which is our family company. My wife and I are owners and managers in the business with my stepdad and my mother, actually. So we service farm operations, clients, peer groups all over the United States and Canada. I farm north of Peoria, Illinois. We run an independent regional seed business, and been enjoying it here the last 5-6 years.
Very good.
Now, you've also got a military background.
Yes.
And some of that's been more recent than others.
Yeah, it is. So I just came off a 10-month deployment to Iraq here in April of 2025. If you think that leaving your farm business and seed business for 10 months is a good idea, I would caution you against that. But we survived, had a great team there to backfill kind of my role. And the consulting business actually excelled in my absence, meaning we had hired in other consultants to kind of take on my role, and it was a growth that we needed in the meantime. That was my third deployment. I deployed, that was with Illinois National Guard to Iraq. I deployed 2 times to Afghanistan with the 75th Ranger Regiment when I was on active duty. And hopefully no more deployments in my future.
Well, thanks for your service there.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and you even kind of serviced the Ames, Iowa area, if we go way back, correct?
Yeah, your stomping grounds there. So Iowa State University for agronomy, graduated there in 2015 and enlisted in the military 9 days later. So.
Oh, boy.
Time for a message from one of our great partners, Brandt Industries. And now, for a limited time, Brandt has an exclusive deal on their grain carts, the 000. It's 0 down, 0 interest, and 0 payments for 6 months.
Brandt grain carts have efficient unload speeds, large carrying capacity, and unmatched durability. These carts deliver faster and more thorough cleanout with quicker turnarounds to keep your operation running smoothly.
And their reliable components make sure that your cart is working when you are. Now, this financing offer ends September 30th of 2025, so you won't want to wait. Visit your local Brandt dealer for more information. This gets us a lot of perspective for our audience. I am impressed, right, that you're able to leave a business and leave a farm and not completely come back to it in shambles.
No, not completely in shambles. I'll say I called it my Bob Ross happy little accidents of things that occurred over a year.
That's on the tree. Oh, there's a happy little accident. Yep.
So we
got more business.
We've spent 4 or 5 months unwinding some of those things that happened. But the great part of that, I came back in and I just said, hey, I'm going to come in. There's going to be some issues, and I don't care why they happened. I don't care if it was anybody's fault or what the excuse was. I'm just going to identify issues and we're going to fix it. And I feel headed into Harvest Hero 25, we're back on the right track.
How much of your experience of running AgView Solutions prepared you from being able to go on leave like this?
Massive. It was huge. I mean, you have to get the right people in place, and we talk about, networking, strategic resource partners like you mentioned, and it's like, well, it's time for me to kind of, eat my own advice there, and do I have the right systems in place? And there's things that I identified when I was gone that, I'm not perfect at this. We have to live and breathe it every day too. But it certainly helped.
A lot of our listeners, their peer group is all family because that's what their entire farm or business is it's a family-run operation with maybe an extra employee sprinkled in here or there. Why is it important to get outside of family?
Well, you're the 5 people that you surround yourself with the most, so if that's only family, you probably get stuck in a little bit of a box. The opportunity of being a part of a peer group or a formal education program, whatever version of peer group that looks like for you, gets you outside of that comfort zone and exposes you to a lot of other things. And guys, I get the opportunity, we facilitate 8 different peer groups currently that are active with 8 farm operations each. And I'm not at every single one of those, but we know most of those people, or we've worked with most of them on a client basis on the consulting side. So you get this insight into, here's some things you should do, but a lot of times it's, here's some things you shouldn't do. And that's one of the quickest ways to learn, is just what not to do.
How much of this came from the military side?
As far as the management and people side?
Yeah.
Probably a lot. I think I have to be careful though, because sometimes I'm a bit direct.
Yeah.
So you got to tone that down, I guess, a little bit when you work from a relational standpoint. I think personality management has a lot to do with that. But the biggest thing that came from the military side is there's a mission, there's a goal, you have a target, and you just go at it.
Yep.
And whatever's in your way, it doesn't really matter as long as the mission gets accomplished. And
is there peer groups? I'm guessing there's after action reviews, but is there like peer groups in the military?
There is, I guess what I would say, direct partnerships from a mentoring and learning standpoint.
Okay.
That they've really focused on, hey, this is the position or the job that you're in. Let's partner you with a mentor and make sure that you understand what it takes to get from where you're at to where you're going.
Got it.
What a cool spot to be in. I mean, that's what Dave, Corey, and I have benefited from the most, is when you do over 500 different interviews with a lot of really smart people and leaders across the industry, we're learning right alongside our listeners. We get to be active in the conversation, and the double benefit that we get is when the mic's shut off, that's all the listeners get. We get to keep talking to you. Mm-hmm. We get that relationship down the road, and we hope that continues to share and things that we can pass along. But why again, let's go back to the basics of a peer group. What are the most benefits you get out of being in a peer group, and maybe explain what that actually is?
Well, we were talking here beforehand. What's the best part of being at the Farm Progress Show or the work that we do in podcasting? It's the networking. And I'll give you a prime example. We were in Las Vegas after one of our peer groups had ended. We were doing an educational event. And one of our clients walked up to me and he said, well, I just paid for the podcast or for the peer group for the next 4 years. And I said, okay, I'm intrigued, I'll bite. And he said, well, I was talking to these guys over here, and they told me something on a combine setting that my beer math, and he had a napkin, my beer math tells me it's going to save me $100,000 over the next 3 years.
Jeez.
So I'll be in the next peer group. And it's like, if he hadn't been there talking to those people on his specific problem, it would have cost him a lot of money.
So, Tanner, back up to breakfast this morning. We went to McDonald's this morning.
Nice.
And every McDonald's across America, there's probably a group of coffee guys that are talking. They have a peer group, but it's not like focused.
That guy walked in and called it the Liars Club.
The Liars Club. It's just the random coffee guys. So, like, what's different, like, for our listeners? A lot of them probably have peers, the neighbors, the grandpas of the world that do that. How's yours different?
So we facilitate peer groups in a purely business-minded executive outlook, saying we want to partner the right 8 farm operations together. It's not the coffee shop talk. It's not get around and drink beers. It's we are taking a deep dive into your business on whatever issues that you have that you want the peer group to identify. So the 30-second overview is we meet twice a year for 3 days each time, and we do a deep dive into the host operation. So every farm gets the opportunity to host. You go to their location. We spread it out geographically, so you don't have 5 operations in Illinois and 3 in Iowa. You might have 8 different states that you're a part of. So the geographic distance helps. And then we look at variability in operations. So you want people that are on different timelines, if you will, different paths in their journey, and saying, okay, well, maybe they've gone through transition, or maybe they've gone through an expansion, or maybe they're collaborating with someone. We need to pair the right people together. So you put the right farm groups together, and then we do a deep dive into your business. The host operation gives a presentation on what's going on in their business. They give the top 3 things that they want the group to focus on. And then, guys, we actually sit down. It's like you're sitting in Gitmo sometimes. It feels like you're interviewing 8 to 10 key business partners or employees or family members from that operation to figure out, hey, what in the heck's going on here? What's good, what's bad, what's ugly, and then how do we go about fixing it? And the host operation's not present for that. And then at the end of that day, the peer group actually starts putting together a SWOT analysis. So they're looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for that business, present it back to the host operation, and now you have 8 to 15 accountability partners in your farm from your peers that gave you suggestions on what they would do.
That's intense.
It is, but it's worth it.
I imagine you don't want to disappoint the people that are in that group.
You don't.
If somebody's committed to taking that much time, devoting that much focus on your operation, expecting the same out of you in return, I hope we didn't scare listeners away, because this seems like a pretty serious commitment.
It's a 4-year commitment, really.
Now, do peer groups exist in other formats?
They do, not that we facilitate.
Are you talking like other businesses?
I'm just talking about, that sounds like a really big commitment, to where, you've got, if someone's going to go back and get their master's, that's a big commitment. But someone can go and still take a couple of community college classes if they wanted to expand their knowledge. Like, is there a gateway drug to peer groups like you run them?
So I would say the gateway is, as I mentioned, we work with a lot of these clients over time. So typically where we start on the consulting side is we'll work with someone on cost of production, and then maybe it's business structuring, and then that leads into transition. And somewhere along that journey, they could be at any step of that, they identify, hey, I want to be part of a peer group. I want my peers to come in and give me consulting advice and to give me an outside perspective on what I'm doing in my business. It's anywhere along that path, but we tend to think of the peer group as being, maybe the 3rd or 4th or 5th year, like you said, going back and getting your master's. That might be when you decide that it's time to be in a peer group. What I will say, though, is you don't have to have it all figured out to be in a peer group. In fact, the people that join when they think that their farm is a mess or they think that their business is in shambles, that's when you need the peers the most. That's when you need that guidance and that outside look. So don't feel, I don't want to scare people from the standpoint of, well, I don't have my stuff together, I can't provide value. You're going to provide value to the other members there, but you don't have to have it all figured out.
And I'm glad that you said that, because it sounded intimidating. And I relate this kind of to what Dave, Corey, and I have the benefit of doing is, I imagine this is the stuff that you don't want your neighbors to know. This is the stuff that, you can have your local peer group, but you're not going to tell them the secrets of what you're doing because they're kind of your competition.
Yeah, they are. And we always joke, it's, when you invite someone into your operation and show them your financials and show them, put your dirty laundry out, it's kind of like you're showing them your underwear drawer. You just like open everything up and you're like, well, here it is. And so it can be vulnerable to do that, but out of that vulnerability comes growth, and it's far greater than what I would call downside.
Dave, you should be proud of me. I'm refraining from making all of my underwear jokes.
I was waiting for one.
Nope,
I'm
leaving it. We're gonna leave that one untouched.
We'll just touch Corey's underwear drawer. Well, maybe we won't touch his underwear drawer.
No, we need a stick to open that one.
So is there, when I think of this, I think of my auction business. And when I think of local competition, we have the Iowa Auctioneer Association, and it's all my competitors. So you don't throw everything open at that conference. But when I go to the national conference, it's somebody in Tennessee, my buddy Jay Cash down there. We talk on the phone all the time, or John Nichols in West Virginia. I mean, we'll talk because they're not my competition. And now they don't really come and see my business, but we just have like private phone conversations on this. I know Corey does this, Ag Twitter, back in the day. Yep. That's what it was. We would call people and we would talk to them, but this isn't that. This isn't just having a conversation asking. I mean, I've asked Tanner, hey, should I take this job? Hey, should I do this? Hey, should I do that? This is, you're showing them everything.
Yeah. And when you get to the end of that process, the peer group comes in and they, like I said, they make these recommendations and they give you action items on what they feel that, you know, you want, that they would want you to work on. And the host operation can do with that what they will. They can say, we're not going to do these 10 things, but these 4 things, that's a really good idea. So that conversation that you're referring to, you're not just calling and saying, well, what do you think about this? Your peer group member might be calling you and saying, hey, Shay, you said within 6 months you were going to have this done. How's that going? Can I help you?
The disappointed dad conversation.
Or sometimes a pat on the back of, hey, good work. You crushed it. You know, you call them 3 months and they got it done.
This is go ahead.
Have people seen progress with it? So it sounds expensive to me, is what it sounds like. Let's say we have a lot of young operators, Tanner, that watch the show or listen to the show, and when they do, they're thinking right now, as I'm thinking, man, I don't farm enough to be big enough to open my doors to those guys to even show them. Corey this morning said, I'm a small guy, and I'm thinking, what? You have way more acres than me, okay? But if he's thinking that, then I'm definitely thinking I wouldn't open my doors because it doesn't make sense to anybody. I holistically looking at your deal to end this question, how big do you got to be?
We have operations that are 500 acres and we have operations that are 40,000 acres and everywhere in between. It's less about the size of acres or the complexity in your business as it is what inflection point are you at in your life or in your career that you feel that you need this. Here's an interesting statistic for you guys. Our peer groups have a 95% retention rate.
That's pretty high.
Meaning of the 8 groups we facilitated in the past, 60 some of those have continued into the next round of 8 peer groups because they see the value.
So Tanner, would you rather hire a consultant or have 10 other people with operations like yours give you feedback?
I like the way that you kind of approach this to where you can start with the consultant side. Get one person's opinion first. Maybe you make a couple of adjustments based upon that before you go into the chaos, which is, I assume, an organized chaos. I mean, when you said it the other day or earlier about it could even be a pat on the back, there's a lot of lonely situations in agriculture. You know, you're on an island sometimes, and the only one to pat yourself on the back when you're combining through 280 bushel average corn is yourself. You know, the only one to pat yourself on the back because those steers went to market, you know, on a daily rate of gain at 4.3 pounds per day is yourself.
Well, your spouse does. Like, hey, honey, thanks for the extra money. We're buying a hot tub.
Right.
I mean, there is.
In some instances, but for the most part, you're alone.
Yeah.
Well, and what I would say to that is, how many times have farm operations gone back and celebrated their successes?
Yep.
And the follow-up, how many farmer retirement parties have you ever been to?
Ooh, none.
0. Why is that?
Holy.
I've been to lots of lots of retirement parties, but not
never
for
a farmer.
Because we don't take time to celebrate our success. So you get a peer group in there to recognize the strengths and the opportunities.
A crazy, never thought of that. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I'm still reeling on that. There has never been a farm retirement party.
And maybe there should be.
There should be. There absolutely should be. And that's one of those cool experiences of it needs to be celebrated. One of the shows that we put out about a month before yours, maybe almost 2, is we've done a lot of succession planning episodes, and we had never really done one about, okay, part of succession planning is if you want to transition before you die, you have to be prepared to retire. Because succession planning could be done after death.
I was going to say, most people don't retire, they just die.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But if you wanted to retire, you had to do some planning. You had to put some financial thought into what assets are you going to pull income from in your retirement. Maybe we just got to get to that to where we can start celebrating some of these retirement parties.
Absolutely.
I can also imagine that if you're in a room, I know that my dad, for example, when he served on different boards, Iowa Pork Board, the Cherokee County Farm Bureaus, and then, his involvement with the electrical cooperative, that every time he stepped up a board level to a larger organization, his skills became better. He was forced to pay attention to the minutes, review the agendas, have communication with staff members, so on and so forth, to make it a better run organization. I assume the same thing. You're probably polishing up skills, sharpening points within the peer group too.
Yeah, and I would say, there's operations that maybe are in a mess. There's operations that have tremendous opportunity, and then there's operations that are the group comes in and serves as confirmation police.
Okay, so let's back up for just a second. You said police. Tanner, your father-in-law, would he ever, they're decent sized operation, would they ever let another cattle feeder come in and give them advice on what their operation is? I mean, you've tried to give suggestions to them, but you're the outlaw, not the in-law.
Yeah.
So,
and I think when it is peer to peer and there's a respected level of involvement, I think it's welcomed. I would say yes now more than 5 years ago.
Will there be hesitation though, and why?
Oh, I just think the hesitation purely is going to be due to farmers too. Most of the similar traits is pride and secrecy. Like, that's my numbers, my financials. I don't want to just turn those over to anybody. I mean, I go back to my experience in finance. One of the hardest things to do is to get somebody to switch their banking relationship, and that's because most of them don't just want to turn over their financials to somebody else.
And it's a pain in the butt.
It is.
Transfer all of your stuff, especially when every password's online.
But we'll go back to where we cut you off with. Some folks, you said join, and they are confirmation police?
Well, so you might think that you're doing everything right in your operation or that you got a good foundation, but you need that outside perspective of someone that's not your next door neighbor that knows you're doing a good job. You want the best of the best sitting in that room saying, Tanner, we want to take your operation from a 9.5 to a 10.5. And the other thing I would say is, you talk about people coming in and giving you advice. If you're not receptive to that, you're not interested in a peer group anyways.
Yep.
We have a waiting list right now of 40 operations to get in a peer group, and every one of those 40 operations understands the value of it, and so they're going to be as committed to the people that we pair them with as the other people in that peer group are.
And the people they're paired with, I was just thinking, we get to interview people from all across the country, and people in California. I was thinking of a Californian coming into a peer group for us in Iowa. I feel like, well, I'd put a wall up. They don't know anything about corn and beans. They have, pistachios and grapes and other stuff. But I'm guessing you put like-kind people with like-kind people or operations.
So what do you guys think the number one issue is that comes up in any sort of farm business management, peer group or consulting? What do you think one of the top one or two issues is?
Family.
Oh, you want to say family or labor? And
people
then,
management.
Yeah, people management, and then that kind of falls into the same thing. We talk about standard operating procedures. Like we struggle with that on the podcast side of things.
It's hard. So people management is always number one. How do you communicate? How do you get along with each other? And how do you grow the business? Number two is usually opportunity management, because the opportunities that are coming at farm operations today, it's not, can I go buy 80 or 120 acres? It's, can I go buy 400 or can I add 1,000 acres? I had a gentleman call me the other day. He said, hey, I'm farming about 23,000 acres dry land. And by the way, in the next 5 years, I'm probably going to have another 15,000 acres that just from conversation, that's not small opportunities. So your person out of California, they don't care anything about dry land corn in Kansas, but they might know that this is how we did a large expansion in our dairy herd or in our avocado, whatever it is. So it's people management, it's business decision making, it's opportunity outlook, and then it's just getting the right people to care. 80% of the battle is caring about someone else's business and caring about the operation. You get a room full of people that care, it's pretty powerful.
So how do you recognize that you're not the quarterback? So lots of our operations started with not business management people, okay? They didn't go to school for that. They went to school for agronomy. They went to school for something else. And so they're good at doing the farming operation. How do we, to our listeners, there are probably a lot of them that think, oh, yeah, I'm pretty good at business management. I might be in this boat too. But we're probably better at the nuts and the bolts and the small, the harvest, the welding, the whatever it is. Then it's almost like we need to bring somebody else in, a Tanner of the world, to now have the meeting to say what could we do better, because I'm more nuts and bolts and don't have time for that. I'm guessing, Tanner, there's got to be a lot of operations that are like that. I mean, isn't the main farm operator, they got into farming, not into business management?
Well, there's a seed company that we give no free ads to that had a famous radio commercial that rattled off everything that they were. You were the agronomist, and you had to be the accountant, and you had to be the veterinarian, and you had to you serve so many different hats that it's hard to be super good at all of them, let alone just innately being a good leader amongst any CEO. Because I cut you off way early in this interview to where you were talking about how business owners do this. And there are CEOs from banks that are in peer groups with CEOs of insurance companies and a CEO of a plumbing company, but they're all relatively in the same position on their operations to where they've been doing this professionally for years. So why can't agriculture do it?
Yeah.
We are.
Exactly. Well, in the professionalization in agriculture maybe lacks a little bit. So whether they think that they're the quarterback, or sometimes people have this outlook that, well, I am the CEO or the president of the operation, I need to be the guy. I would argue that the most professional CEOs and business people that I've worked with realize that they're not the guy. And they're not, CEOs are meant to manage certain aspect, like a very limited aspect of the business, and then they have everybody else do all the other things. So them being in the peer group, being the executive-minded leader that's participating in the peer group, shows them the opportunities that, here's where we can grow, here's what I need to let go of. And sometimes the peer group comes in and says, hey, Dave, you're not doing as good as you think you are. You should probably step back from this, or you should improve on this. There's tons of opportunities to learn from that setting, and maybe a little bit of humility.
Yep. What do you think we covered in this one, or what should we cover that we didn't cover in the one a couple of years ago?
I want to go into the barriers of entry into a peer group, because it sounds scary, and it sounds like a really big jump and a really big time commitment. And the way that you described consulting is kind of that gateway drug. Let's dive deeper into how consulting can work for farmers.
Yeah. So if you start with the consulting basis, I think it's just recognizing that there's some things in the business that we don't do as well as we should. Maybe it's cost of production, maybe it's management, maybe it's we know that the farm down the road has a business structure in place that's really working for them, and we're not there. So taking those bite-sized pieces, listening to the podcasts that you guys do, listening to the podcasts that we do of how to think more business-minded is probably the starting point. And then looking at it and saying, what are the most successful people that I know doing? And are they participating in some sort of a peer group, or are they taking time to work on their business and not just in their business? That's the right mindset to have. So I would say the barrier to entry there is nothing more than the mental approach that you have to how you run your business. So if all you're worried about is, I need to go fix the broken PTO shaft and this bearing's out or whatever, those are small problems. And they're not unimportant, but small problems have small solutions. Big problems need big solutions. And when you take a step back and look at how you're managing your business, it probably requires more insight. It requires more strategic partners. It requires a bigger picture management level than what you're used to. That would be the mental barrier to entry. The other barrier to entry is there's not that many people actually that are facilitating peer groups. And that's why I think, one, we've had success with doing it because of the model that we've developed to do it. People have really liked that, and obviously the retention rate shows that as well. Lance Woodbury is with Pinion. He actually just wrote a white paper with Ohio State University that published on peer groups. There's 4 or 5 different companies that he recommended in there that facilitate them, and I know that we do it a little bit different than others. So there are various, entry-level peer groups, beginning farmer peer groups, virtual peer groups. I know of several of those. It's just finding what the right fit is for you.
It does sound like there's a lot of options.
Yeah.
And sometimes with options, it becomes hard to choose. But it's good to have somebody on your team, whether it's Farm4Profit or through you and your business, to be able to kind of help guide that direction. You said something that we used to ask as a question. We used to ask what our guests thought all the most successful farmers had in common. What trait made those folks successful? Let's do that. I want to pick your brain. I want top 3 things that you've witnessed amongst the folks that are in your peer group. For our audience right now, what are they doing that has made them the most successful or differentiated themselves?
Number one is they care about people and culture.
Okay.
That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Expand on that.
You can grow your business to a point that you can no longer manage it. And a lot of times what people do is they will grow the business to that point and then realize they need to go back and fix the culture. And that's a lot harder than setting the culture and then growing the business. And people realize that at different points in their growth or different points along their path. The most successful people have realized from a very early stage that they need to have the right culture and the right fit.
Can I stop you there for a second? We're sitting here at the Sukup booth, and I think, as you're saying that, I think of John that worked here at Sukup, and he made the safety door on the grain bins, and this guy was not just loyal to the Sukup family. I mean, he farmed with them, grew with them 40 years or so. I mean, they must have had a culture in there somewhere, exactly what you're talking, and that's why Sukup
that he wanted to make something better.
He did, and he improved processes. Granted, you're not the top dog, you're not the CEO, but you were a worker. John just emulates that with Sukup.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how you get those employees. You know, sometimes I hear from our audience members that say, God, I just wish they cared. I just wish my guys cared. You know, I always got to check on these things because they just don't care.
Yep.
Well, that's how you get them to care. They buy in. They almost run it like it's their own.
Mm-hmm.
So Tanner wanted 3 things. You give us one about culture. What would your other 2 be?
I would say number 2 is the business side, the financial outlook. There was something on X the other day. A guy said, well, how do you manage your invoicing, accounts receivable, and accounts payable? And, some guys get on there and they say, well, I wait until the stack, on my desk falls over, and then I realize I should probably do something about it. And, they might be successful. They might be flush with cash. But for 98% of the operations, it doesn't work
Probably
that way.
Not, yeah.
If you don't have your at least accounts payable, accounts receivable, and invoicing set up, your business has no opportunity to grow. You can't hire in the right person to take over some of that stuff. It's just a mess. So you got to have the business and financials in order.
When margins are tight, there's a lot of money that can be made into paying attention to those.
Yeah.
Whether you're looking at early pay discounts that outweigh what it costs you to borrow on your operating note, or you're looking at those. Not to have our listeners become those that always push the limits of late payment, but if you have 30 days to pay, you can wait till the 28th or 29th day to make your payment. There's things that you can really pay attention to when you understand the financial side of things.
Yeah.
Same thing when you talk about these opportunities. I'll come back to that after you get your third one, because our listeners are going to be in a position. They're already top of the industry because they chose to listen to Farm4Profit. There aren't very many people that listen to us that aren't striving to make themselves better already.
As you're thinking of your third one, Tanner, you're a list maker. We used to do top 10 lists of everything. We should do a top 10 list, because it's going to be a tough year. Margins are tight, of the top 10 things that our podcast has recognized to be profitable. It's going to be tough. So these guys are going to need this top 10.
It is, because I've been trying to go through an exercise of identifying a top 20 episodes for like a brand new listener. Can you come into this?
Yeah.
And I got it sorted down to 120, not 20.
Oh my.
I might have gotten it down to like 40 or 43, but holy smokes. I'm glad actually kind of that was the result, that we actually have some content out there that's worth a crap.
Yep.
But for the most part, I can see it being daunting for anybody coming into agriculture or coming into leadership in agriculture right now to be able to feel like they've got a handle on things.
Absolutely.
So we talked about culture, talked about finance. Is there anything else that some of them top guys that are in your peer groups do?
You just hit on it. It's opportunities. They either seek opportunities, they create opportunities, or they find opportunities. And seek opportunities is they are actively engaging it. Find opportunities is there's stuff out there, but nobody's looking for it, or they just make the opportunity. They say, I'm going to create this market. I'm going to create this product. I'm going to create this group. And then they just go after it. They seek a need.
John at Stapler Farms, he finds opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
At the funeral homes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He follows them there too. But I don't disagree with your statement, because it seems like some of the most successful listeners that we network with are doing that, where it's like, wow, you start an electrical business?
Well, we could go right.
Well, they knew that there just wasn't a good, solid electrical business that understood agriculture, and that niche was a void that needed filled.
Go back to our first interview today with Sherry at Steinbauer, and they made they're more with performance on tractors, but their engineering firm saw a need for something. They saw the opportunity, and they just built a brand new product.
Wow, good for them.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, that's how Farm4Profit started. We saw a niche that nobody was playing in. We decided to play in it and try to do it a lot different than anybody else has. And that's kind of interesting that we can be considered a tool, but you've got a podcast as well that can be a tool. Talk a little bit more about your podcast.
So our podcast is called the Ag View Pitch, and we were talking here beforehand. We started basically the same time that you guys did. Chris, my stepdad, who I'm a partner in the business with, he came to me and he said, this is like right when I started there. He's like, hey, we're gonna start a podcast and you're gonna figure it out. And I was like, I don't know anything about podcasts, you know. I listened to some, you know. Well, like 9 days later, we had our first podcast,
cool.
And we're sitting at a little over 700 episodes
Jeez.
On the Ag View Pitch, and then we have a subscriber only called 19 Minutes, just about at 100 episodes there. And that's where, Tanner, you talked about like the overwhelming of how do you go back and pick the top ones. The 19 Minutes, you can go back and just binge listen to all of them because they're all business focused. But what we started on the podcast side is maybe a little bit different than your guys' approach. We started it for our clients that we were working with because we were getting a lot of the same questions over and over. Hey, what about marketing? What about, you know, cost of production, decision making, or whatever? We only started the podcast for our clients to listen to, and then when they called us, they were asking better questions. So it wasn't, hey, what do you think? It was, hey, I heard you talk about this. I have a specific question about this. And it brought more value to them right away.
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense when you frame it up in that direction.
And it's grown. You know, it's grown well beyond our client base.
Tell us about your 19 minutes. I already wrote it down. What's your 19-minute podcast subscriber only?
Yep. So 19 minutes is the idea of 1 hour in a month that you take to develop your business professionalism. So we do the 9th, 19th, and the 29th. It's roughly 19 minutes each podcast, but that's our no hold barred. I can swear on there, so sometimes that makes me feel a little better. But really, it's Chris and I and whoever we bring on. It's your no BS outlook. Like, let's sort through all the noise. Let's sort through all these softer topics. Let's dive into here's the real decision making that you need to have in your farm operation. And so we've had pretty good success there.
I like that. 9th, 19th, 29th, 19 minutes.
Yep.
Always less than an hour.
$29.99 a month.
$29.99 a month. Look at all the nines.
Maybe it's 30. I shouldn't say. I don't handle any of the billing.
Well, today for your low price.
Only here, on the Farm4Profit podcast.
The last thing that I teased that I want to talk about, and we get questions 4 different ways about the word opportunities. We've got young listeners that are looking for opportunities. We've got young listeners that have been presented with opportunities and they're looking for information on how they can take advantage of those opportunities. We've got listeners that are looking to provide opportunities. Maybe they're looking to transition out of a custom application business, or they're looking to actually retire and don't have family heirs into that process. And then we have listeners that are jealous of opportunities. We have those 4 categories. Let's start with the first one. Those that are looking. What advice do you have for someone who's looking for an opportunity?
I think identifying a space that no one else is playing in or a market that no one else has. Lots of people have good ideas. Very few people act on those good ideas. So if something pops into your head and you're like, man, I think that's a good idea, maybe just pursue it. I would say I have my hand in a lot of things currently with the different businesses that we do, new opportunities, new adventures, new business ventures that we're a part of. And I look at it, and you'll listen to some of the most successful business people that say, I just need at-bats. They don't all have to be home runs. You know, look at the best hitters in history. They're hitting 300. That means 10 times they go up to the plate, 7 times they're striking out. You know, just go after anything that interests you, anything that you think will provide value. And that's probably the first thing I would say. If you're a farm operation or an ag business, it has to be ag adjacent or farm related so that it doesn't detract from your main thing. But if there's an opportunity, man, just chase it.
Okay, what about those that have been presented with an opportunity and either feel overwhelmed or don't have it figured out as to how they can pursue it?
Yeah, you should call me. I say that somewhat lighthearted, but you have to have people in the industry that have been exposed to hundreds of opportunities and say, here's what to be cautious of. Here's some things that you might want to consider, or that's usually more helpful for people is here's what you should go do. You should put this together, this together, this together. Oh, and by the way, you should talk to these 3 people. So it's the networking. And if you don't have someone specific to call, I mean, that's something that we kind of refer to ourselves as the conduit. So we have all these strategic resource partners that we work with in a farm operation, but a lot of times we're the conduit that connects people together. And I'm sure you guys do that all the time as well.
Yeah. Okay, next category. We have the opportunity to provide an opportunity. That was terribly phrased. We have an opportunity to share.
Yeah.
What do you have advised for those folks?
I think having a clear picture of what your expectations are in that type of relationship. We hear it all the time. Nobody wants to work anymore. These kids, they don't want to take on any risk. Well, have you laid out exactly what your expectations are? And expectation management sometimes can be a bit difficult. So what do you expect out of a partner? What would you like to see out of a potential candidate for that opportunity? And are you willing to part with your vision of that opportunity and let them take it and run with it? You used like a custom application example. Just because you've been servicing these 2 counties and these 12 customers, if they want to go to a different 3 counties and service 40 customers, are you okay with that? And if you are, well, then maybe. So I would say have that foundation, and then again, it's just networking and connecting the right people.
All right, my last category, and the ones that I love in the comment section.
People who hate us?
Those that are jealous of others' opportunities.
Yeah, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So I spend very little time engaging with that. The people that think that way probably are not the people that are going to be farming in 30 years or are not going to be the people that are successful in 30 years. I would say, I just heard this the other day. I forget which podcast I was listening to, but essentially you can't change people, but you can plant the seed. And actually, I think it was on Rush Hour Egg. I think I was listening to those guys.
Gotcha.
And, you can't change anybody, but you can plant the seed. And so maybe they do need someone in their life to say, look, I think you have a negative perspective on this. There are opportunities out there. And when you're open and receptive to the fact that there are, then let's come back and have a conversation. Maybe they'll stew on that for a while.
I can't remember the name of the phenomena, but we've talked about it on this podcast before, to where, like, if you buy a new pickup and it's orange, because you've never seen anybody else driving an orange pickup before, and then as soon as you have it, you see them everywhere.
You pull out of the parking lot, and there's an orange pickup.
Another one, and there's another one. That's what I think opportunities are, is if you're looking for them, they are literally all around you.
Yep.
You just have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah, and it's usually the people that are saying, well, there's no farm ground to rent, and there's no businesses to take over, and everybody wants their money.
Yep.
Hey, good luck. Good luck.
Go create it.
Well, the last thing that I want you to be able to share with the audience, and I made you wait till all the way at the end of this episode, profit matters, always has.
Yeah.
And you've got a tool that your team's put together that you've been working on for a long time, your Profit Manager tool.
Yeah.
So pitch that here before we close out. Let our listeners know what that does.
So Profit Manager is a cost of production Excel-based tool. It's one-time purchase, $2,500. You own it for life. What you get with that $2,500 is the 5 consultants on our team to help you make better decisions in your farm operation. So you might already have your Excel tools built out that you like. You can integrate that into Profit Manager. It's our universal language. So if I come into your farm operation and I look at your Excel, I could spend 30 minutes and have no idea what's going on. But if you plug your numbers into Profit Manager, I have a universal understanding of what's going on in your business. I can better help you make decisions. And I think that's the framework that we need. I don't like the software as a service thing from a recurring expense. We want to sell you a tool that helps you make strategic business decisions moving forward. That's what Profit Manager is. And I think for anybody getting into that space that doesn't know their cost of production, maybe you're coming out of college, maybe you've been doing it for 20, 30 years and you realize, man, my numbers aren't what they should be. Mm-hmm. That's what Profit Manager is for.
Gotcha.
So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, I know you usually pocket a question or two. Did we let you run out this time?
We're good. I'm looking at the Iowa State ad out there thinking, go Ireland. We rocked it out. See you next weekend.
I just got tickets to the Iowa State game, so
There you go.
we'll be there.
Hell, that'll be a lot of fun. Well, we appreciate you, as always. If folks want to get in contact with you, how best do they do that?
Yeah, eggviewsolutions.com. That's agviewsolutions.com. Or you can email me, Shay at eggviewsolutions.com, and look forward to hearing from you guys.
Yeah, you brought up those top 10 lists we used to do. We also used to summarize.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time since we've done a summary, so I'm going to try my best to kind of hit some of the benefits of that peer group and rolling into the consulting. The one that really stuck out to me is the get off your own island.
Mm-hmm.
You've got somebody that can help motivate you to do something better, but then you've also got the people that can cheer you on when you've actually done something really good or made an improvement that truly matters. Gives you fresh ideas. Obviously, you can listen to us. You can listen to your podcast to get new ideas, but sometimes those seeds get planted differently when somebody that's in a peer group tells you those. That accountability piece that we've touched on, sharpening your skills, whether it's something that you know you need to get better at or you didn't realize you weren't that good at, you can really pull those things together. And then again, understanding that the right people that you surround yourself, whether it's a peer group or an advisory panel like we initially started talking about, that this is something that you can look at on a team basis and put those together. So appreciate you as always. It's probably been too long since we did this show, so I'm glad listeners were asking for you back. I'm glad you reached out and we were able to put this together. All right,
Thanks,
listeners,
guys.
until next time, have a good one.